Garrett Fosdyck, welcome to the American Glutton podcast.
What's up? How's it going?
It's going good. Thanks so much for
Good to
doing
hear.
this.
Yeah, no problem, man. I mean, I see you in the gym training with Marquez all the time, and I saw that post of you when you were heavier, and I just was like, hey, I was heavier too, so I was like, I gotta show him this too, because a
Yeah,
lot of people
dude.
don't know that.
Well, look, you went from very overweight to a professional athlete. So that's something I'm super interested in. Like, how did that happen?
Well, so like I've always been like kind of a bigger guy. I was never been like too tall in wrestling and stuff like that. I've always wrestled throughout my whole life, but I was always like that, kind of like a butterball, big boy, but just moved well. And then so I've always been an athlete, but I've always just been a heavy athlete. And then probably after college, it's like long story short, I'm sure we'll get more into it. I just met a doctor and he was like, listen, dude, like, you really got to get a hold of that, or like you're just going to live your whole life like this, and I was like, well, I don't want to do that. That and
Right.
like eating as a heavyweight, at 285 is kind of like a job. You work really hard, you lose weight, but you don't want to be like the small guy out there on the mat. So you like had to
It,
eat like a job.
is that what you fight at? 285? I
Oh,
thought it went, no, no.
no, not anymore. I don't want to get hit in the head because there's a difference between wrestling and like getting hit by a 285er. But
Right.
no, I fight 185 and 205.
185 and 205. So that's over 100 pounds just in that from that weight class.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think the heaviest, like I said, the heaviest I ever weighed was about 315. And like that was like after, like my collegiate career was over. I was still around the schools, drinking heavily because it was like still you're in college, you're having fun. And then when I get out, when I weigh in, I'm 185. So it's like when I actually fight and weigh 185, I'm like more than 100 pounds than I once was.
Were you cutting weight to wrestle at 285?
Um, probably probably the last year I had to be careful because like I was like I would the lowest I would get sometimes would be about 265. And then sometimes I would be like there was a point where when I was early, because I used to be a really like not as big as the other heavyweights, there was a point where I lost a lot of weight and we talked about 197, but then my coaches were very much like, no, you need to eat like 3 waffles after every meal. I was
Right.
like, all right, I'll do that,
Yeah.
which is,
And
bad
then
habits.
getting up to 315, that was just like you weren't active anymore. And so,
Yeah, I just wasn't active anymore, and my eating habits, were still like because that's the hardest thing to stop. That was the hardest thing to stop for me. So my eating habits were still like I'm training 3 times a day, and I need to be like a surplus of weight. So then I would just keep on eating, and then I wouldn't be training like I used to. So it would just stay on, and then eventually I kind of like it got ahead of me, and I was like, oh man, I'm like really big now.
right.
Yeah,
And
and
what was the doctor's advice?
sorry.
What did he tell you to do?
um he knew that I was an athlete, and it was I'm blanking on the doctor's name, but he was like associated with the university I wrestled for, and I would always see him. But he was very like straight to the point. He's like, yeah, you know how to lose weight. You're a wrestler. You know what to do. It's simply like good diet, exercise. I'm very like hard nosed when it comes to losing weight. There's no like secret serum, or you just gotta like work hard and stay healthier, and that's pretty much what I did. I just was like, all right, well, boiled chicken and rice it is, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
and
I think
just
the
went
thing
after it.
that derails people is the motivation, right? Like if you got a guy who's got all these bad habits built up and then his motivation is simply weight loss, that can be hard. I mean, when you were doing that, were you thinking I'm going to be a professional athlete? I can't, 285, you would have to cut. I think the max in MMA is 265, right?
Yeah,
There's
265.
Yeah. So you would
Yeah,
have had to cut and I
cut
don't,
regardless.
right.
Yeah. um uh I think I always knew that I wanted to be like a smaller weight class in fighting, and that definitely motivated me. But the big motivation was just like personal health. You know, um, my goals as a professional fighter, they're still going and continuing to go. Uh, but early on, I remember first coming here and getting with the Black Zillions, and then getting with like Henry Hoof with Hard Knocks, whatever name they've gone through, but um and being heavier, and then meeting guys that were like, top tier, like Linton Vassell, like Steve Mallory, like uh and being a heavyweight and being like, okay, maybe I'm not really a heavyweight. I need to like think about this. So like that was a huge motivation because I can compete better at a smaller weight class,
Right.
like 100%.
Yeah. And
But
then your health.
yeah, my health, that was super important because like, I'm from Virginia, so it's kind of like Southern Whole Foods and stuff like that. And my mom's a big lady, my dad's a pretty big lady, and I mean not lady, sorry, my dad's a pretty big man, and I was very much like, well, you know, seeing that they're when they're older and all the health issues they're running into, like I didn't want to have to deal with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was a surplus.
So
That
many
was a plus.
people in America, we have these kind of public scares, and we had COVID, which was super scary. A lot of people died, but so many people die every year in America from heart disease. And
Yeah,
a big contributing factor to that is obesity.
for sure. And I think I know it's a hard button, but I definitely think Americans are less they're like, it's okay, don't worry about it. I feel like it's not a present, like they don't put emphasis on like, hey man, like if you see a very heavy set friend, we're almost like, oh man, it's all good, shake it off. But like being in the community that I'm in, like every day you see a guy with like an 8 pack, you know what I
Right.
mean? So they're very much like, hey man, like you're looking kind of thick. And you're like, dude,
Right.
I'm at like 20% body fat. What are you talking about? He's like, no, you need to be at 3. But
Right.
it's just but like I mean that's like an outliner when it comes to like America. But I definitely think we're definitely softer on the aspects of like, body positivity is like okay, but then when it's like neglecting your personal health, that's like no longer okay. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, it's this weird thing where I try to think about like the the uh the human, it's like seems like human nature to me to try to make everything as efficient as possible. And obviously if we as a species have a history of famine, we want to combat that by having as much food accessible, like find out how to store and preserve food. Like before there were even preservatives, people were canning and jarring and
Mhm.
smoking meats and like figuring out ways to pack grain, and keep it as fresh as possible for as long as possible. So that's just in our nature. And then we wake up one day and it's like, well, we've succeeded, utterly succeeded beyond when our ancestors had no idea that there would ever be such not food scarcity in one place.
Yeah.
And then the reaction is to consume it, right? Like it's hard, it's understandable that if we're working so hard to make food so accessible, that then our bodies are like, hey, if I can save up energy in the form of fat, why not do it? So that's all understandable. And then you have these unintended consequences of like heart disease and type 2 diabetes and like, the discomfort. Like it's hard on the feet and ankles and joints, and it's not comfortable. It's hard to breathe, like all of that. So it is kind of a mind fuck in that way.
Yeah,
um
100%.
Hard to navigate, but like, yeah, I think there is a plenty of evidence to suggest that obesity can be uh socially contagious. So like if you find yourself around a lot of obese people, odds are you become obese. The odds are greater that you become obese. And so
Yeah.
like it's hard to fight. It's a fight.
Yeah, 100%. I think I agree with you on that aspect. It's like it can be a social, like, because like, not trying to point out families that are all heavy set, but normally when you have like one heavy set person. There's normally like others, or a mother or a father or brothers and sisters and stuff like that, friends and stuff like that. It's building up habits, right? So like I lived with Marquez, like one of your personal trainers. Like I lived with him for like shoot, almost 4 years. And I also lived with Linton. And
Right.
like, Linton, he's like a specimen. And like
Yeah.
that's the people I lived with when I first came down here. And it's funny that you say this because like I had to educate myself on the way they eat and the way Linton eat. I feel like when Linton was at 205, he ate differently. He
Right.
never used a single oil. He
Right.
was so strict when it came to like the types of fats and oils that he used. A lot of times he cooked with water. And I was like, okay, are you boiling it? He's like, no, I just like use water so it doesn't stick to the pan. I was like, why don't you use like olive oil? He's like, I can't. And I was like, oh,
Right.
you can't. And like, so I developed a lot of like good habits through Linton and Marquez watching. And sometimes Marquez, I notice, and a lot of people don't do it like this, but Marquez is a big fluid. Like everything he eats is like fluid sometimes. Like he doesn't sometimes doesn't sit down and have like a solid meal, but he'll take all his nutrition in through like a fluid. Like the dude has some of the best tasting shakes you've ever had in your life. He'll be like, yo, taste this. Be like 11 o'clock and he's like kind of hungry. He's like, taste this. And I'll be like, all right. And I was like, oh man. He's like, yeah, that's my meal replacement. I was like, oh, that's really good. But yeah, so like definitely surrounding yourself with people that have similar goals and similar like practices, I guess you could say. And when you want to lose weight is definitely like a almost like a fast track, an easy pass to like getting the weight off because you're no longer having a friend. And that's when I would lived in Tennessee. So I always had friends that would be like, hey man, it's wing night. Like you
Right.
want to go watch the game and have a couple beers, and like a couple beers turn into 10 and 50 wings. And you're like, oh, okay. So like being around people that share the same passion with like healthiness, being healthy.
Yeah. I think for people who are struggling, who want to lose weight, there is something about surrounding yourself with people that are like-minded in that way. You know what I mean? Even if that just means going to a gym because there are going to be other people there pursuing that. I think
Yeah.
that's better than never going to a gym. And I'm not saying like ditch all your fat friends. That's not the
Yeah.
idea. But like I, as a sober guy, when I got sober, there was a minute where I was like, I can't just go hang out with people doing drugs. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like this sobriety's fragile. And so if if you're overweight and like something you and your friends do is go hit the buffet and eat until you're sick, maybe you don't do that with them anymore. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like it's just like because there is some social, the other thing that's kind of big in the news right now is the idea that it's all genetics. And to that, you know, where it seems like it's being presented as this reason to not do anything about it. Well, like people are
Yeah. Like
overweight.
give up.
Yeah, it's genetics, so you can't do anything about it. And I would just say like, the susceptibility to melanoma, skin cancer could also be genetic. And if that's the case, do we just say, well, that person should live their life as anybody and not take precaution and go in the sun all day long and not wear sunscreen or whatever the thing is. Obviously, if somebody gets skin cancer, it's tragic, it's
Yeah.
harmful to their life, but there could be a genetic component. And then so what do we do? What are we doing? Should we normalize that, or should we try to find solutions to that? It's the weirdest thing. So maybe part of the obesity crisis is genetic. Okay, that doesn't mean we stop
That doesn't
trying
mean
to
you give
fix
up.
it. Right.
Yeah. And I think you're saying like I've heard that argument and stuff like that. And like I very much like I would say I'm probably like being a fighter, I put on weight pretty easily. Like I go home for a week and go see mama, like I have a couple plates of biscuits and gravy and I'm like back up to 230, like just like that.
Right. Yeah.
But and the thing is like that doesn't determine that like I'm destined to be overweight. Right. I mean, it's kind of like, if you're going to say it's genetics, I would say it's just a level of difficulty, right?
Yeah.
I look at it like that. Like you're like, if you have a genetic disorder that makes you a little bit heavier than everyone else, or like you are obese genetically, I think it's more I look at it more, I think maybe that is scientific. There's some proof behind it, but I don't think it's like, oh, well, you should just give up and be, lazy and heavy. I'm like, no, that just makes it harder. And like, I'm a religious person, and like sometimes like God gives you like a path that's more difficult than others to make you appreciate it a little bit more. So like if you say like, oh, you're genetically, obese, then that you're not gonna be obese. That just makes you like, it makes it a little difficult, just work harder.
Totally. And I think with anything, um, some people have learning disabilities, and we can have compassion for them and go and recognize that, like, not everybody's going to learn to read at the same rate, and it's going to be more difficult and some people are going to be more gifted in athletics and less gifted here and excel at different stuff. And it's like everybody's got a path. Okay, my genes predispose me to storing fat possibly at a higher rate, or
Yeah,
predispose me to higher, you know, than necessary rates of hunger. Well, okay, great. I also, want to do drugs, and I don't do that. And maybe there's some gene in me that wants to comfort myself with drugs. I don't know, but like there's plenty that I have to fight against and overcome. And the idea that anybody just would take that and go like, no, we should accept this. I don't know. It sits funny with me.
yeah, 100%. I agree with you 100%. Especially in the way you put it in different like scenarios, like learning like if someone says like, hey man, you're dyslexic, never learn how to read, sorry. Because like
Right.
I like me growing up, I was on an IEP. Like I had like a adjustment, whatever learning thing, and like reading was difficult for me. So like, but that I also graduated King University with a college degree, and yeah, you should work harder, you know.
Right. And then, then there are people who smoke cigarettes, and like, there are people that jump out of airplanes for fun. And like I go like, none of that seems safe. They ride motorcycles without helmets, you know.
Adrenaline junkie. Impa. No, I'm just gonna say it. Like if he listens to that, I was like, Impa, get your damn helmet on. He was downtown this weekend. I'm sorry.
On a
Just like,
motorcycle without a helmet.
yeah. And I
Yeah,
was
see,
like, dude, he's like, Impa, what are you doing, bro? You're a professional athlete.
right.
You gotta protect your noggin.
I wonder
No, I'm
which
sorry.
kills you more statistically faster, riding a motorcycle without a helmet. By the way, you're talking about Florida. That's
I
like
know,
the
dude.
most
That's what I'm
crazy
saying,
drivers
man.
on earth.
Yeah.
That
Oh,
or
don't
being
even get me
obese.
started.
Obese, you probably have an edge on the motorcycle guys, honestly. So
Yeah,
like,
true.
so then
And
there's the
here
aspect,
in South Florida, yeah, for
right?
sure.
Then there's that to think about. Like, health doesn't always have to be like a primary factor in our decisions, because it's not. And comfort also, like, people get tattoos, people get piercings. That's not comfortable. There's nothing about getting a tattoo, unless you're like some kind of masochist where you're like, oh, this is just sheer pleasure having somebody stab ink into my skin.
Yeah, true.
um People wear, I mean, women wear high heels. Have you ever tried on a high heel? It's the worst. It's a torture device, and they wear this
Once.
every day. Yeah, it's crazy. uh so it's all very confused to me, but I do not understand the current like impulse to say you shouldn't want to change it, or to, you know I don't know, it just sits wrong with me.
It's funny you brought up the aspects of like people living with pain and stuff like that. And I think for some people that are heavy, I know that their weight is a lot to do with like maybe emotional trauma or physical trauma. So they're like very much like kind of live with the pain. Or like I know some people that are like, this is like kind of off topic, but people like women mostly, or sometimes men that have like suffered through sexual abuse or something like that. A lot of the cases they're like obese and they're heavy because they almost like fear the aspect of like being attractive. I don't
Yeah.
know if that's what it is, but I know that like that sometimes comes into play in the aspects of like emotional and like mental abuse, and then it kind of like projects itself out there physically through like eating and trying to find that comfort and stuff like that. And I think that's another thing is like sometimes, you know, not so much finding the friends or finding the people that can like physically, you know, your environment around you change your eating habits or like your health and stuff like that, but you need to also figure out what poison you kind of have, and maybe you need to go see a psychiatrist, maybe you need to fix issues mentally before you start attacking your physical, you know.
Right.
And that's, I think that's another like huge deal with obesity in America for
Yeah,
sure.
no, I agree. I had a random conversation with a guy today, and he was asking like, what do I recommend? And everything we talked about, I was like, well, you gotta address your behavior, I think, before you even start a diet, because you know that that's going to play a bigger role in the long term, certainly, than how you eat for a couple of months.
Yeah.
You know, if you can develop new habits and change the way you're using food as a crutch or as a comfort or whatever it is, and you know, that's not to say that every now and again having a meal cooked by your mom that's like insanely high in calories isn't a nice thing to do. But like if we're going to the diner every night and trying to recreate that nostalgia of our childhood, that can become unhealthy.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, 100%. I think I have my mother's chip beef and gravy like once a year, and I think that's dangerous enough.
Oh
Like that
man,
is like,
that sounds good. Do you put it on toast?
oh yeah, she does like the like with the white trash way. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's just like toast, gravy, and a little like was it I forget what kind of meat she uses, which is like chip beef, you know,
Yeah.
but it's good. It's like
Yeah.
so bad. It's like literally like Paula Deen 7 sticks of butter or something crazy like that, you know.
Yeah.
But it's
That
good. It's
that sounds
good.
like a perfect meal, to be honest with you.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
what was when you saw this doctor, he had this conversation with you, you started down this path. Was it no, you never looked back?
Yeah, man. Like I know this sounds like kind of like self-centered, like kind of egotistical, but like I started seeing results in my legs. Like I was like riding the bike one day and I was like, I looked down at my thigh and I was like, is that a fucking vein? I was like, is that fucking, I was like, oh shit. Cause I've always had huge legs. I just had big old legs. But then I started seeing the definition of my legs. And then that's when I think it became, I remember the day I was like on the bike and then I went to my roommate. His name is Jesse Masters. And I was like, dude, I got like a vein on my leg. He's like, welcome to the club. And I was like, all right, well, I think I'm I think now that it took about 4 months, 4 to 5 months to see. And I think that's what hurts people the most. They think they're going to go to the gym for 3 weeks and they'll see a result. And that's not how it works. And that
Right.
sucks. It was like I went to the gym and I was like a college wrestler. Like I was expecting result and I just kept on with the grind. And then once I saw that result, the vein in the leg, and I was like, yeah, it's a pretty good feeling. And then I just kept on going. And I don't think I was like I wasn't satisfied. Like, I mean, I'm always comfortable in my own skin most of the time. Like, I want to be like fit, but I wasn't super satisfied until I was about 205. So when I was 205, and that was like, I was probably down in Florida. That was probably about 3 or 4 years ago. And when I saw, like, once I started working with Henry and then I got down to 205 because I was getting ready to 185, I was walking around. I was like, that's when I was like, all right, I'm good. I'm happy. You know, but it first started off with health. And then once I saw that vein, what really motivated me is now it was like almost like I was sculpting, right? I was like, all right, well, now I'm going to like make this like a serious thing. And being like if I came to a point where like I felt like I couldn't do anymore, like that motivated me. It was like I have to fight at 85. Like it's like I can't just show up on fight day at 120. I mean 220.
Right.
You know, I have to be at 185. And I think that, and then with that being like, man, I look great. Like I don't know, I sent you that link on Instagram, of the picture of me. But if you go through my story and you find that same picture, you click on it and there's like, it's like a scroll through, and it's
Okay.
like, that's when I was the most, like, that's when I was happy. I was like 220, I was like 210, 28, 208, 205. I don't know the exact number because I drink a gallon of water, you weigh like completely
Yeah.
different. But that's when I was like, when I posted that picture and when I posted the slide picture, that was the day of the photo, and I was like super happy with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you weigh today?
Oh, I didn't weigh out after practice, but I'm probably like 210. I would say
210.
210.
So
Yeah,
you're still very
210.
happy with your weight, right?
Yeah, I'm very like comfortable, but then I also like train 3 times a day, so I don't really have time to get crazy. But I would say I would, because now that I've learned, like, the cut weight process is something that I don't try to describe to any, like, I call them like muggles, non-magical people, right?
Right.
I try
No,
not to. I'm
listen,
like, listen,
I want to ask you about it. I want to hear about it, but I do want to preface it by saying, like, this is not a weight loss strategy
no,
for
this is
anyone.
crazy.
No
Yeah,
one
this is
should do
crazy.
this. This is a
Yeah, people that are,
professional athlete getting ready for a professional
yeah,
athletic endeavor.
the only other sport I think that does it as aggressive as fighters is like Olympic, like bodybuilders, like
Right.
they do it crazy. Like I had a buddy, what's his name? Justin Trent, he's out of Tennessee, but he did a show once and I like touched his skin and his muscles and I was like, bro, you're like all bone. Like it's gross. Like he was like he was cramping. He was literally cramping right there.
Yeah.
But where was I at? I could talk about the weight cut process. Yeah, the weight cut process. Yeah, that is not for normal people. So, like, when fighters, we try to get like, some fighters do it differently. Some fighters are very aggressive and they do it like 20 pounds from weight and all this stuff. Me, I'm kind of a little wimp. Like, I have to diet down pretty far and then I'll cut the water, right? Um, I would say on fight day, I probably cut 10 pounds of water weight. But that's the thing. Like a lot of people are like, oh my God, like this last week, you've lost like 20 pounds, 22 pounds. Like you lost 15 pounds in 8 hours. I'm like, it's not pounds. It's not pounds and it's not healthy. 100% not healthy. It's only to be at this weight for like a fraction of a second and then you like just guzzle water.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. It's all water weight and all like micronutrition and stuff like that, like things that are in your muscle, like through the water and you like piss it out or whatever, like iron, salt, all that stuff. But like when people are like, hey man, how do you make me like lose weight and get like shredded up like that? I'm like, you don't. You
Right.
just don't. You can't live that. You can't live your life like that. There's like, and that's the thing. And that's another thing America does is they have this like you see on Instagram, all these guys that like are shredded with six packs and all this stuff and they post images. And I was like, well, if you ask them to send, you see that photo and maybe it's like 48 hours after the photo or whatever, you tell them, hey, send me a photo now. They're going to look like 25 pounds heavier.
Yeah.
It's like,
Or they're on a lot of drugs.
yeah, they're on a lot. They're on like trend, like just shredding them out and stuff
Yeah.
like that. It's like completely unnatural.
Right, which is also incredibly unhealthy. Like either side of that, I dieted down for a photo shoot once, and I remember like doing a double bicep pose, like just throwing your arms up and flexing, and my vision would go away. Like it would go to
Yeah.
black, and then I'd have to stop. I'd get lightheaded. They'd put a chair. I'd like lean on it. Like, what the fuck is this? It's the worst feeling.
Yeah. One time when I was cutting weight and I was at practice, and I think it was a Monday. It was like fight week. It was a Monday, and I was training with Sato. Like Sato. But I was doing the drills, and I just remember like my blood sugar dropped or something, and like I just lost, and we were going takedown and up, and every single time I got up, I was like, oh, and then Sato was like holding me. He's like, yeah, keep working. I was like, oh God, oh God. But I swear, like by the end of it, I was like, I'm gonna die. I think I'm gonna die. But
Yeah.
yeah, like no normal person should ever like put themselves on a level. Maybe once, maybe like in the aspect because like as a Marquez always says, like every single time I cut weight, I feel like I'm close to God. You know what I right? And like it's true. It's like what monks do, or like people like do religious fasts and stuff like that. That's literally what we're doing. It's like no food for like more than 24 hours sometimes. But it's like it's pretty like it's yeah, it's just not something
And
anyone
are you
should
cutting out
enjoy.
salt too? Are you getting off the
Yeah, I
salt?
do. Yeah, when I do cut weight, I normally cut salt like a weekend. Like I
Wow.
have like six, maybe 5 days without like added salt. So like no added salt. Because normally like if I'm cooking something up, I'm like spices and stuff like that. I got a cabinet over there with like 30 different spices. But I'm all about spice. But yeah, so when you get fight week, you try to avoid the salt. But it all depends on like how your diet went and where you are on your water. And one thing that I've been blessed with is to work with one of our strength training coach, Peacock, Corey Peacock.
Yeah.
But he very much like has perfected the aspect of like, you do 2 gallons, gallon and a half, a gallon. You start losing the water, and eventually, what that does is it tricks your body into dropping the water. But then it like your body is in like a state where it's dropping all the water, but then you start cutting the water back and it doesn't have enough time to kind of like react. So then you pretty much like trick your body into dehydrating itself because it thinks it has enough water,
Right.
but then like your water flushes out and then you're lean, man. You look like a Greek god and it's great. And all you want is like a banana and some like Gatorade for like however long it takes the commissions to weigh you in.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that's pretty much it. You're like,
I
days.
do think there is some aspect of like the crash diets that become popular in America that mirror that are just like so extreme, where it's like, okay, you want to do this diet, great, it's 600 calories a day and you do it for 30 days and you lose X amount of weight, and it's not so much about dehydrating yourself, but it is about being so extreme. And I think like anything like that, it's not sustainable. And then you put your body into a state where it just wants the weight back. Like I'm
Yeah,
sure you gain
100%.
20 pounds overnight when you do that.
Oh yeah. When I walk in the cage, like if I'm fighting 85, 185, I'm walking in the cage at like 205, 210.
Right.
Like I'm back. I'm like,
That's 24 hours. Your body puts that water
yeah,
back and it fills the
yeah.
muscles up, So to me, it's just not like
And
if you wanted to go from where you were at 315 down to 210, 205, 210, and you were like, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do what I do to cut weight. You die. You probably
yeah,
die in
you
the
die. Yeah,
process.
for sure. Yeah, exactly. And I think a lot of people see all these like some like what I don't know what you call it, what kind of workouts are, but they're those drastic workouts. They're for quick results and they don't last because I feel like a lot of the times like your body only like has to take a longer amount of time for you to how do I say this? Like if you want the results to stay, it's going to take a gradual and it's kind of like the tortoise and the hare, right? It's got to be a tortoise. Like it's got to be steady and constant and it keeps on going and you keep on dieting and your results, the longer you do it, the longer you do good diet, the longer you work out and stay constant, the longer your results will stay. If you like do something drastic for like 2 weeks and you see a little result, well, it it's going to take that much time to come back. It's like a short amount of time. Like, yeah. And a lot of people think, I mean, sure, if you do that crazy stuff for a crazy long amount of time, yeah, it'll work, but it only worked because you did it as long as you did it, right? If you do like a 2 week crazy thing, you're going to see good results, but it's going to take 7 days to put that weight back on.
Yeah.
It's not gonna be, set in stone and, you know,
Right.
constant.
With the extreme stuff, my experience was, because I did plenty of those diets where you just are eating next to nothing, you're lightheaded all the time. And my body, if I'm losing weight now and I'm dieting and now it really is no more than a 20-pound kind of swing from my absolute leanest to where I'm like comfortable to just live my life, right?
Yeah.
I'm maintaining my weight very happily. And then there will be a movie or something that I'm going to go do, or a photo shoot, and it's like, no, I got to
Get a
diet.
large popcorn. Oh, sorry. You said movie. My bad. I thought you were
Yeah.
watching.
Yeah. and if I do it very slowly, I can get to this place where my body's not freaking out and like making me insane. But if I do it very quickly, the minute that I'm like not doing that anymore, my body's doing everything in its power to just restock the weight because it thought I
Yeah.
was dying.
Yeah. It's pretty much like the concept of like, hey, yo, we were like, it's almost like hibernation, right? It's almost like, hey, man, we just starved for like a couple of days. We're gonna like make sure that doesn't happen again, you
Yeah.
know. And it's like, wow, let's hoard all this nutrition,
Yeah.
you know, and then make fat and stuff like that. But
If you
how do you
take
feel about like
yeah,
fasting and stuff like that? Are you a big faster?
I'm not a big faster. I've looked at a lot of the literature on it, and honestly the thing that interests me the most is in the it does appear to have some effect on cancer. Like that
Oh,
is
sure.
I don't have cancer and it doesn't run in my family, but like there is some stuff that looks like people who fast a couple times a year, you know, not these extreme long things, but that it can, you know, and I haven't done all the research. I don't think I'm not a fan of it for weight loss.
Well, like intermediate fasting. That's what I mean. Like the whole what I don't know that some people do like 4 hour windows where they can eat. Some people do 6 hour windows where they can eat.
Yeah.
Uh,
I think if you're trying to lose weight, what you eat in that window still makes a difference.
matters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Can't just
like
be like, oh, I fasted all day. I'm gonna eat 7 slices of pizza.
right, it's not
Yeah.
that's not going to be good for lean tissue. And like I mean it all depends. If a person finds it easier to reduce their total consumption of food by giving themselves a smaller window, then it's great. But there was a director who's a good friend of mine, Kevin Smith, and he lost a lot of weight intermittent fasting. And then it got to the point where he was gaining weight while intermittent fasting. And he was like, what the fuck is this? I was supposed to be able
What
to
just
eat whatever I
happened?
want. Yeah. And
Yeah.
he's eating, you know, basically vegetarian fast food all day and vegetarian ice cream and in his 4 hour window and gaining weight. And so now he does intermittent fasting, but he's dieting in his 4 hours. Like he's really, really still restrictive.
Yeah.
And like that's what works for him. So that's great. But that would not work for me.
So when I was getting to about, I would say about probably 230, like in the 230, 240s, like still kind of a big guy, but like I've lost like starting to look in a way better shape. Um, that's when I started kind of doing intermediate fasting. And I started experimenting with it more, but I very much did what we're talking about. Like I was like, I saw that like, oh, I ate what I wanted. And then I didn't see results anymore. And then I was like, well, now I'm going to eat super clean. But like what I learned is like, I still have a pretty good metabolism. And I was very much like, all right, well, I'm just gonna instead of eating like, you know, one or two things that fill me up and it like helps like makes me feel good or like pizza or whatever, like pasta, something like that. And I'm gonna eat like four chicken breast and like a pound of spinach.
Yeah.
Like and I'm still gonna feel stuffed. I'm gonna feel gorged, but it's like all super clean. And like if you look back at my Instagrams, like one thing I liked is I sometimes posted like the food I was eating, like eat cleaner, eat healthier, and that's actually one of the on the scroll reels that I have is like meals that I prepped and would make, and like these meals, I mean, they filled the plate, but it would be like 20 Brussels sprouts, 2 slices of salmon, and like some sweet potato fries. It wasn't like I mean anybody would be enjoy themselves eating. I don't know like about Brussels sprouts because some people are
I
picky,
like
but
them.
yeah, I like them. Get them a little crispy in the air fryer. They're
They're
like,
awesome. Yeah.
they hit. Anyways, but yeah, so like I started eating these crazy amounts of food, but they were like super clean in the window of like in my intermediate fasting. And I was like, oh, it's good. Like, and that's what really like hit my trigger. Like, so, and that's what I kind of do now. If I'm going through a fight camp, that's what I'm gonna hit it with. I'm
Yeah.
gonna hit it with I have like I like to do because I'm kind of like I have a pretty crazy schedule, so I try to give myself to like 8 to 6 hours of eating like throughout the day, and then but what I'm eating is like a lot of good stuff, like a lot of good stuff. Like, man, I go through the price of eggs right now. It's just like, I might as well just like take out like a loan. But yeah, I will go through like 12 eggs a day
Oh wow.
when I'm like, yeah, I don't even play around. I hard boil them sometimes, and then sometimes like I'll just like I'll wake up in the morning and I'll be like, all right, 6, here we go, cholesterol, building block of testosterone, let's go,
Right.
like, and I'll just hit that. But yeah, I think when you do intermittent fasting, you learn that you still have to eat cleaner, but you can eat a lot in that window.
Yeah, I think we live in a day and age where like I don't know, information gets out there in the form of a 140 character tweet, right? And so it's like just be carnivore, or just be vegan, or you know, if you're keto's the successful way, or eat clean. And I do believe that if you took people who subsisted off primarily a processed food diet and moved them on to a whole foods diet, like what you're talking about, eating clean, right? Like one ingredient foods. You're eating sweet potato fries, which have sweet potatoes in them. Brussels
Yeah,
sprouts are Brussels sprouts. Chicken
Brussels
is
sprouts
chicken, right?
is chicken.
It's not in a box with 300 ingredients. It's not super processed. I think people would see a huge change. But I do think there are also people who are like addicts like me, who you tell me like you can eat as much of these single ingredient foods as you want, and I'm going to find a way to overeat them. I'm going to find a way to
Oh,
overeat
for
for me personally. And
yeah,
so like it becomes this tricky thing, because I think with anything, it's like people want a one word answer. What's the one word answer that will solve me? And it's like, eat clean. Okay. Some people are going to still overeat, you know,
yeah, for
unfortunately.
sure.
And,
Yeah,
and so we live in this day and age where it's like, be compassionate. Okay. What does that mean? That means like, you know, anybody with any non optimal situation, like being obese, we're going to just tell them that it's okay and they don't have to work anymore. And that it becomes so tricky. All this stuff is so tricky. So like I eat the way you're talking about eating. That is the majority of the food I eat are one word ingredients: chicken, beef, vegetable,
rice.
rice. Yeah, that's it. And that like honestly is for me, I'm with you. Like I can eat so much more of that, feel better, get the nutrition from it. My body feels better. I'm fuller, and like it's just a better life for me. But I do get worried sometimes telling people like, well, just just eat clean, because it's like there's more
You're
to
like,
it than that for some
there
people.
is
Like
100%
you're
more
also
to it.
exercise, you're also a professional athlete who works out
Yeah.
3 times a day.
Yeah. I also have like coaches like screaming at the back of my head, like, go harder. And you're like,
Right.
oh God.
Yeah. You're
But
blacking out and your teammates holding you up and saying like you
yeah, they're
can't
just
take a
like,
break.
but yeah, I mean, I'm definitely an outlier. Like I definitely don't have like a normal lifestyle. And I think that you can't tell people like, yeah, you can't just tell people to eat clean, because like, here's the thing is like anybody, anybody that has like gone through weight loss and has a success story from it, or like has like pushed themselves and like have like had hit goals that they wanted to achieve, it's all different for them.
Yeah.
And I feel like, but like it's all like the same side. It's like almost like it's like a highway. Like everyone goes off that, oh, eat cleaner, and they go down that road, and it's like different for every single person. Like their tire pops or their engine stops, or like, you know, things just start getting in the way. Like I was just like, um, I don't even know. I don't know where I'm going. But when the biggest thing is like they have to learn for themselves.
Right.
Like you have to learn for yourself. You have to figure out like, okay, well, you know, Foz um, did it this way and he had great results, but like I'm having it trickier this way. So like, what do I do? And I think that's when you start benefiting from people around you. Like, hey man, what do I was like? Well, try this. You know, instead of running at night, you know, run in the morning. Like, or
Right.
instead of like eating, like for one big thing is like I learned that like in the morning I can I'm like blessed with the aspect of like I wake up and I'm like I float. You know what floating is? Like I'll like burn a ton of calories when I sleep. So like when I wake up in the morning, I can like have like a kind of a cheat meal almost every morning if I want. If I want, I can have a cheat meal and it doesn't stay on,
Right.
right? Like I can have like I can go, you know, to Dunkin', go grab like a little like croissant with like some, you know, sweet bacon or something, or like just a donut.
Is
Or
there
but
really something called sweet bacon at Dunkin'
oh
Donuts?
yeah.
Holy
Oh
shit,
yeah.
man. I haven't been to a Dunkin' Donuts in years, but it's fucking,
Yeah.
I'm imagining like candied bacon.
Yeah, it's just like, you know, like a sweet bacon. Sweet bacon. It's amazing. I got
Wow.
bacon in my fridge. I got bacon. It was at Publix, like buy two, get one. What is that? Buy two, get one free. And I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna have like a ton of bacon. And I just
Yeah.
like got it. But I love bacon. Any doctor tells you bacon's bad. In excess, of course, don't eat like a pound of bacon, but bacon's pretty good, you know. Where was I going? Yeah, but like you just have to you gotta learn what you can get away with, right?
Yeah.
You gotta learn your own like weight loss journey. Cause like for some people, when I was heavier, dude, you couldn't get me to run.
Yeah.
I was like, no way, dude. Like you're trying to tell a 315-pound man to run in the hills of Tennessee. You're out of your damn mind. So I was like a biker. I just biked.
Yeah.
I was just on that bike, just now I can run. I can run. I mean, road running is tough because you know I'm 30 now, and like I get my knees are beaten up from all the years of wrestling and jujitsu and boxing and kickboxing. So like when I get on the road and I run, I'm like, all right, we're gonna do 2 miles and then we're done. And 2 miles for some people is a lot, but you know, I have friends that do like 15, like Evan Elder. I'll see like Evan Elder. He's like, I just did like 25 miles. You know, God bless. This is awesome. And I'm just like, no way. I'm about
Right.
to run 25 miles. You know, but yeah, you just have to find your own journey. I don't know. I'm kind of rambling, but
No, I completely agree. I think that I think that the path to success can be, you know, your motivation is not going to be my motivation, and exactly what you did isn't necessarily going to be workable exactly for me. I think we're largely harmonious in that, like, uh, eating clean works really well for me because I feel better and I'm able to do it long term. And it sounds like you are too. Um, that doesn't mean that it's necessarily going to work for anybody, but I also worry that um people are, you know, don't have the time or inclination to find their own path, you know, which every single person I've talked to, no two people did it exactly the same way.
true. Yeah. And to like hit that is like I feel like, and that's where you have to like start getting like I don't know I hate the aspect because sometimes I feel like the professional help is like so overpriced and so ridiculous, and sometimes like you go to a guy that like has professional help and they're like yeah they tell you the same thing your friend did, and you're like are you fucking serious? I just gave you
Right.
like $100 or whatever, but like I think that's when you start need to maybe like sometimes search for professional help, but like it's such a diluted industry sometimes.
Yeah.
Like I like one nutritionist that I've known since I was like super young, like Tyler Midden. He was actually a fighter, and I think he helped Daniel Cormier, and he's like a chef. He's like, bro, the guy can cook, but like he's very much like he'll tell you the real shit. He's like, nah, dude, you're just being a fat ass. Like this is what you need to eat, you know, and
Right.
like this is what you need to do, and this is like he gets down to like the chemical like levels and oh, he's like a scientist. He went to school for it, you know what I mean, like nutrition and like sports medicine and all that stuff. So that's when you really need to start like maybe reach out to people like that because like I feel like they're definitely in that they're in that field for a reason. They're in that
Yeah.
field to help you. Because like I mean I don't know. Are you a sports nutritionist? Am I a new sports? No, I'm not. I couldn't tell you like how many micro whatever grams are in a something, and like they really get it down to where you know you and I really don't understand it, but it will help. It'll help us in the long run. Like it'll help us like see the results we're trying to get. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yes. I also think for you, it's your job. Like
Oh yeah,
you got like the average Joe doesn't necessarily need to see that guy. They can still have success without him.
True.
It's a good thing that you're seeing guys like that
Well,
because
no, I didn't. I've never seen them, but I'm saying like I feel like when you start seeing like you don't have results and people are having struggles, they need to reach out to people like
yes,
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
and people like you and people they know who are active and fit. Like I think there's nothing wrong with talking to a person who's never struggled with their weight. And I think there will be aspects about them that's hard to relate to where those people sometimes are not compelled to eat, right? But how active are they? How much time do they spend standing
True.
up? How many active steps do they have every day? And do they put their fork down before their plate is clean? Like just stuff like that, I think is interesting because I do think there is something to that where if I understand that I'm predisposed to eating to the point of being stuffed, then I got to work on that. That's what I
Mhm.
have to work on. Whatever it is, you lost 100 pounds and are a professional athlete. That's fucking huge.
I just kept on grinding.
Yeah.
No, but it's funny you were talking about like it's hard to connect with people like a personal trainer that's never been heavy. Like, cause like a lot of times I feel like that's a huge issue too. Cause like you have guys that are like 300 pounds and they hire a personal trainer and he's telling them to do all this stuff. And, he's like, bro, you were never 300 pounds.
Right.
And they're like, yeah, I wasn't. Not, and then, but the thing is there are hundreds of people out there. And you just got to find them. You know what I mean? Like me, you, I don't know, like other people that are, you know, heavier in the beginning is like came to the body weight that they're happy with. But like that's another like thing that like I guess earlier the things we were talking about of America's problems, and a lot of times all these personal trainers are like shredded and they've always been shredded. Sometimes they don't relate to someone that was heavier.
Yeah.
Because
And
I actually do remember the times where I was like, I was kind of like always like body positive, but I remember the times like I don't want to take my shirt off right now at the lake. I'm okay. You know what I
right,
mean?
right. I think that it's easy to find any fit person and say, how do you get fit and stay fit? What's more difficult is to find the aspects of being obese that are going to help you navigate achieving success on that path, right? Because like,
Yeah.
what is it? Don't eat more than your energy needs and work out. Like, okay, it's very simple and straightforward. It's diet and exercise. That's the key, right? Those are the mechanics. But then there's like, okay, but what do I do when I'm at a social event and I have raging anxiety, and the
You're like
way I've often dealt with that is by eating. Like, let's talk about that
you're
because
like
the
those
fit
pigs
person
in a
doesn't know that.
blanket.
Yeah.
That part you're at the party and the pigs in the blanket. You're like, oh my god, I could eat like 20 of them.
Yeah. I'm like
Yeah.
standing in a corner feeling like an asshole. I'm not talking to anybody. And if I just go and eat, at least I'm doing something and now participating. Like whatever fucking rationalization is happening that makes you want to eat in social, like there's a lot there that the fucking fit guy isn't even thinking about that because he's got confidence and he's talking to
Yeah.
girls and he's like super comfortable and he's not eating because he ate dinner before he came to the party and he's not thinking about food, but I'm thinking about food
Thinking
all the
about that
fucking
food.
time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
You
there's
know what's
like,
so funny? You're saying this right now, and we're like saying this. And then if anybody's like people that are listening, um, my mother always used to say, like, if you're hungry, go drink some water.
right.
And like so when I was having those struggles in those situations, like when I was like trying to lose weight and I was heavy and I was like, I would go to like social events and they're like, oh, slice of cake. I was like, oh snap. I would always drink water.
Yeah.
And that's a pointer. Like you can drink water to the point where you're like it literally your body will be like, yo, you're full.
Right.
Yo, you're full. And like, don't get me wrong, you're gonna look kind of crazy with like 17 water bottles like by you as you're just like, ugh. But like drinking water is a huge helpful thing if you have a craving in the aspects of like, you're not hungry and you want that urge to eat something, but you know you shouldn't. Just drink like a half a gallon of water and just
Yeah.
wait 10 minutes. Wait 10 minutes after that. I mean, you might have to pee, but just wait 10 minutes after that. It will be a lot easier to manage.
Yeah.
Like that's what I found. Like having that full of water, you're like, oh, I'm kind of all right, that's easier to manage. You know, and not don't drink like a gallon, like a half a gallon of milk or a half gallon of like soda, or just drink a half a gallon of water.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. That's great
that helps.
advice. Garrett,
Yeah,
thank you so
drink that
much.
water.
Drink that water.
Yeah. We coming to a time.
Yes, thank you, sir.
Yeah, no problem, man. Anytime. And it was a pleasure, like to, trade a little bit stories and advice and stuff like that. And thank you for having me. And I'll see you in the gym for sure.
Yes, sir.